Hi there. How are you guys doing today? You've probably noticed that it's been a pretty crazy week for me, so I'm excited to get to talk to you guys about some of that. And let's see, I will save that for a little bit. I know there are a few people who haven't quite joined us yet, but how are you guys doing? Are you starting to be able to get out a little bit more and see people? Well, I wanted to get Jason going right away on a couple of Patreon questions, if that's all right. And then if you guys have questions, start firing them off. Mr. Jason.
Yes. All right. So, just as a reminder, what we do with Patreon. Do you want to tell them a little bit of one of the perks of Patreon?
Oh yeah. So Patreon has done so much to help this channel grow, and and to just make our continued success as a channel possible. And as one of our ways of trying to say thank you to our patrons at Patreon, one of the things we do is we allow them to submit questions up front. I don't get to see them up front, but Jason does, and he tries to get through all of those. So if you're wanting to have your questions answered on a regular basis, to join us on Patreon, that'd be wonderful. Mr. Jason.
All right. Nick Moore asks, what's the best way to tame a lizard? Do you force handle at all?
No. Well, here, I will, spoiler alert. Tomorrow is the day. You are going to see a masterclass unlike anything I've ever seen before. I was there for this masterclass live, and I just rewatched it. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. So stay tuned tomorrow. That will be answered very much. Good stuff? Mr. Jason? Oh,
I was on mute.
You muted me again?
Right. We're excited about tomorrow's video. All right. Pablo Green says, I am currently doing copious reading and research to buy and house my first snake. It's very likely I will get a corn snake or a ball python. I live alone and want a pet that can be chill and quiet, but that I can handle for about 20 minutes a day or a few times a week. For a first-time owner, what type of enclosure do you recommend?
Oh, that's a very good question. For a ball python, I would recommend something made of plastic and not made of glass, just because of humidity and temperature. When it comes to a corn snake, they're going to do well in just about any sort of enclosure that you would use for a snake. It depends really on how much you want to be able to watch it in the enclosure. Glass is obviously the best for being able to see them, even though it's not the ideal enclosure. Corn snakes do pretty well in glass terraria, as well as those plastic sorts of enclosures. And so something with front opening glass that's made out of plastic, the rest of it, that would probably be the perfect sort of enclosure, but those tend to be a little bit more expensive and a little bit harder to find.
Awesome. All right. Also, a patron over at Patreon, Andrew Harrison says, what are your thoughts on keeping a snake in a college dorm, assuming you can get everything you need for it, a permit for it, care requirements, etc.? How viable is it to keep in this circumstance?
Oh, I had snake. So the question, in case I listened to last week's live stream, and it sounds like you can hear Jason pretty well, but I want to make sure. So is about keeping snakes in a college dorm room. I can tell you, at one point in my life, I had 2 snakes in a college dorm room. I had a bull snake and an Everglades rat snake that lived in my dorm room with me, and they were great. The biggest thing is just making sure that's okay. Sounds like you were planning on doing that anyway, but some dorms are not going to allow this. Also, you're probably going to have a roommate in that dorm room, maybe multiple roommates, and probably before you get the snake, it would be a good idea to run that by your roommates, because that could be a major cause of conflict if there are people who really dislike snakes.
Or dislike feeders.
Yes, or rodents, or just you, if they really dislike you.
That's never happened to either of us before.
No. I actually had really good roommates. Yeah, pretty much always. But what here will be my tip on roommates. Okay, this is my roommate masterclass. I've had roommates that were good friends of mine, and I've had roommates that were not good friends of mine, but people that I sort of knew. And in both cases, I feel like what you end up with is a roommate relationship. And if they're people that were your good friends before, a roommate relationship is kind of a step backwards. If they're people that you knew well enough to know that, hey, this is an okay person, but not somebody that you're, already friends with, the roommate relationship is a big step up. And so that was my experience anyway. My friendships did return to friendships after we stopped being roommates, though. So it wasn't a permanent thing.
All right. Let's see, another question from Patreon. Mercury Rising says, what are your views on cohabitation of species that aren't a typical match, like how whole Euros together if they seem to get along?
Okay, so we have a whole video on cohabitation. This question was about, what are my views on cohabitation of species that don't normally go together. Kind of the big take home from that is, do you actually understand what risks you're entering into? Because it's not just temperament, right? It's not just that one of them might physically kill the other one due to an attack, or or that it'll stress it excessively. Could also be their microbiomes don't get along, and so there are just a lot of risks involved with cohabitation that aren't involved when you house individuals alone. We are actually seeing this as humans at the moment, funny enough. And so cohabitation is risky. I also get why people want to do it, right? There are lots of reasons, and though they're all selfish, keeping pets in general is arguably selfish. It's something like when people keep tropical fish, they run the same sorts of risks keeping tropical fish together that you run keeping reptiles and amphibians and other animals together. It seems to be generally acceptable behavior there, and usually not as well received when it comes to reptiles and stuff. When you go to zoos, though, you'll see cohabitation all the time, and part of it is because, if you're say you're keeping like a little tortoise, right? Well, you can probably allocate a few feet of space for a little tortoise, but if it was in an enclosure with, say, like a banana phase pectinata iguana and some other things where they would get along pretty well, you maybe could have this just enormous super enclosure, and that's kind of awesome for all of them, and they can stay away from each other. So that's one thing. Plus, the interactions between species can be really interesting to observe. In the wild, they interact with others, and so there are some new dangers, but there are also some benefits, and you got to weigh them, but really understand what kind of risks you're talking about, because some of them are just going to be a no-go, and you might not know that until you learn it the horrible way. You still there, Jason? Am I back muted?
Dang, I gotta stop doing mute. Let's take a few questions from the live chat. Game Bank Full asks, are Pac-man frogs good pets?
Pac-man frogs. Yeah, in fact, I've been offered, there's a local museum that had live animal shows for a long time, and I think due to COVID-19, they've had to get rid of their collection. And they've been offering me some Pac-man frogs. And right now, I'm pretty busy with some stuff. And so I'm like, I don't know if I'm ready to take on Pac-man frogs right at the moment. Like, I'm kind of not in a growth phase necessarily. I've been taking on a few rescue animals lately. And these, I guess, would be sort of in that category. But Pac-man frogs, though, they can be great pets, pretty low maintenance. It's basically a really wild looking decoration that eats mice, and that can be really cool.
Someone is asking, can you give me a name for a leopard gecko?
Yes, Jafar.
I like it. Let's see. Brandy Davis asks, are false water cobras aggressive?
Are false water cobras aggressive? So they're not aggressive because they can't eat you, and they're not territorial necessarily about you, but they can be a little bit more defensive than other snakes, and they are far more impressive in their defensiveness than most snakes. For one thing, they hood up like a cobra. They'll do some pretty aggressive strikes at times, and they tail whip like an iguana, which is, I haven't really seen other snakes. I know there are other snakes, I think coach whips do this sort of thing, but, they're just, they will do like a full body, a full half of their body whip, and it's pretty wild. And so, but they can also be really, really pleasant and wonderful. A lot of it is going to be how much are you interacting with it, and what is the temperament of your exact snake. Mine, I would say, is sort of intermediate at the moment, but I just need to put more time into it. My life's been crazy, so I haven't been socializing my animals as much as I normally do. But here in a few weeks, I get to start socializing a heck of a lot more. Good.
One more from the live chat. Alina Waldman asks, what's the difference between knob-tailed geckos and fat-tailed geckos? Are they good pets versus leopard geckos?
Oh, so we have a video on knob-tailed geckos. We don't have one on fat-tailed geckos. Fat-tailed geckos are probably more like leopard geckos to keep than our knob-tailed geckos, though they're all kind of terrestrial, semi-desert geckos. Now, I should be clear about something. And the fat tail is a little bit less than the leopard geckos. And, it's something I mentioned in our leopard gecko video that leopard geckos come from the desert. And the reason that I say they come from the desert is because they come from the desert. But people have been, have jumped on me a few times about this because I think people don't understand what a desert is. So a desert is an area that gets low amounts of precipitation. I live in a desert, all right? Where I grew up in Colorado, that is a desert. It's not a sandy wasteland. Sandy wastelands are deserts. Antarctica is a desert. But, it is neither of those things. If you set up your enclosure like Antarctica or like a sandy wasteland, it's not right for these animals. But they're going to be dry grasslands. That's kind of where they come from, and a little bit more humidity for fat-tailed geckos.
Love it. Let's switch gears to Super Chat.
Oh, wait. Super Chat! If you didn't see this last week, look! It is the best thing in the world.
All right. Sherry LBW is our first Super Chat. Thank you, Sherry. They say, what do you suggest as a minimum size enclosure for a trio of garter snakes doing bioactive?
Trio of garter snakes doing bioactive? A 40-gallon breeder would probably be an adequate enclosure for those. Of course, more space would be better. 75 gallons would probably be just awesome. Here's the thing. I mean, they would probably live in a 20-gallon lawn. But I don't know. For me, there's some of it is about, the needs of the snake, right? Like, more space would be better for them. Also, it is just more enjoyable to see what they do with some space, because they, their behaviors and everything become more real. I have a dream that I'm working on realizing here in a few weeks when my life becomes less insane, of building an enormous space for bearded dragons. I see bearded dragons all the time in aquaria, and that's totally reasonable. But if you can do something unreasonable, give them a huge amount of space, because they'll use it, and you will just see them behaving in ways you've never seen before. And so for your garter snakes, like if you can do a 75-gallon tank, that would be even better than a 40 breeder. But a 40 breeder you could set up pretty cool, depending on the species of garter. But for the smaller garters, which most are, it'd probably be pretty good. I know that button was stinking rad, wasn't it? I'm back. Every now and then I'm going to freak out because I'm so excited.
Let's see. The far nose. Wow, I thought butchered that. They sent a super chat. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Wolf Jaeger sent a super chat saying, what is the best way to keep a bioactive enclosure for a lychee gecko warm if the tank is thick, has thick substrate, including a drainage layer? UVU forever.
UVU for okay. So the best way to keep the tank warm for a lychee, I mean, thing number one is make sure you don't keep it too warm. But probably what I would recommend as some of the better ways to add heat, first thing, a UV bowl. UV is probably good for a lychee anyway, and it's going to generate some heat, and that's probably going to be all the heat you'd need. If your enclosure is really huge and you're really struggling for heat, what you could also do is use a heat mat. Probably don't stick it on the bottom because they're not on the bottom. Stick it on the side because they're often on the side, and then use a thermostat because getting that tank too hot is probably a bigger risk to that lychee than getting that tank too cold.
Awesome. Let's see. Meme Central sent a super chat. Just sent a super chat. Thanks, Meme Central.
Thank you very much.
Phyllis Wells sent a super chat saying, "How do you get into your your master class? Is this class about reptiles?"
This master class is about reptiles, socialization of reptiles, handling reptiles, interacting with reptiles, reptile psychology, and it will be our video tomorrow morning, 6 a.m. Mountain Time. Be there. It's amazing. It's amazing. And the thing is, like, I'm not being just like self-aggrandizing here. That is Kevin McCurley from Nerd. This is one of what I asked him to do while we were out there. I said, could you teach us how to do what you do? Because he's incredible. I mean, I respect Nerd as a breeder of reptiles, but I know many large scale breeders of reptiles. That's not what drew me to Nerd. What drew me to Nerd is Kevin McCurley and the way that he interacts with his animals. The first thing I noticed were his dwarf caimans, and then later on with his monitors, snakes, just everything, because he understands their psychology so well. And as I've become his friend, over the last few months, I've learned an awful lot about him. He's actually been releasing some of these videos to the public lately, which I'm really excited about because I would like to see more of this kind of thing from Nerd. But he sends me videos of wood turtles and just things he's watching out in nature because he'll just spend, significant amounts of time every day for a long time just watching these turtles, watching what they do, where they're going. They become very acclimated to his presence, and they just start behaving very, very normally. And he does this with the animals that he keeps and he interacts with. He's just got the right kind of a mind to spend this kind of time, and he's been doing this for decades. And his understanding of the way that reptiles function mentally and how you can develop a relationship with them is, it's unlike anything I've ever encountered before. There would be very few people on Earth that could come anywhere close to the sort of understanding that Kevin has. And he has shared some incredible perspective with us, with me. This is the way my mind works too. My interest in reptiles and his interest in reptiles are very, very similar in a lot of ways. It's just he's further down this road than I am. He's been doing this longer. He's got a much bigger sample size, and I had so much to learn from him, and even rewatching it, I'm like, I gotta watch this over and over again, so that I can really absorb it all and put it into practice because it's amazing. It's amazing.
Awesome. Should we talk about what's happening with you, Clint?
I caught an amazing creature this week. It was unbelievable. Alicia was there, so I might have her fill in some of the details. But I did not intend to catch one of these. I thought we were gonna get one pretty soon. I didn't think I was gonna be catching it myself. But I've been working. I have some deadlines on some publications that I'm trying to get out. So I've been working crazy hours lately, and on Monday night, I guess this was early Tuesday morning at this point, I got home about 12:30, and Leisha, as some of you probably noticed from my posts last week, Leisha and I are expecting our third child, a little girl, and her due date is the 31st. So 40 weeks would be on the 31st. But all of our kids have come a little bit early, and Leisha predicted a long time ago, and she's been spot on with all of our children for some reason about exactly when they will be born. She predicted that she would be born either Monday or Tuesday, and it seems like she decided to kind of split the difference. I got home about 12:30, and Leisha was awake, is experiencing some discomfort, but that's not super atypical of being pregnant in the third trimester. And I shouldn't. So I should mention. Well, anyway, there are lots of things I should mention. We'll see. Leisha hopefully will interject at times and tell me the stuff I'm missing. But so anyway, I got home and I checked on Leisha, and she was experiencing some discomfort, but she seemed to be doing all right. And I hadn't had dinner yet because I eat dinner at 12:30 at night now, apparently. And so I went downstairs and had a little bit of dinner. And then I could hear that Leisha was running a bath. And I thought, well, I'm going to make sure she's okay, because Leisha, she often draws herself a bath when she's not feeling very well. And so I was thinking, she's maybe having a really tough night. And we went up there, and she was definitely experiencing some labor sorts of pain, some contractions. But I have experiences from our other two children, and there's also such a thing as false labor, where you kind of go into labor, you experience contractions for a while, and then they stop. And so I thought, these might stop. But so I just kind of went up and stayed with her and rubbed her back and took care of her, and we've actually been preparing for a somewhat atypical birth to begin with, because kind of the time we were having to make our decisions about how we were going to have this birth was sort of right in the heat of the lack of knowledge about how bad COVID-19 was going to be. At this point in time, we didn't know if hospitals were going to be overrun, if it'd be safe to go to hospitals. And so we actually started talking about doing a home birth with certified midwives. So these are midwives that can take care of the usual sorts of emergency things. If you're hemorrhaging, issues with the baby, those sorts of things. So you're not all by yourself or by any means, but we wouldn't have to go to a hospital. And so that was our plan. And so Leisha was upstairs, and and so I went up there, and she was experiencing some pretty significant labor pains. And the contractions were starting to come fairly consistently. And so, with Owen, there were quite a few times where she had false labor before she actually went into real labor. With Penny Rose, really, she woke up in the morning very early, and she was in labor. And it was the first time I can remember that she was really like having major contractions with that pregnancy. And so, I was kind of thinking, this is probably false labor. And I kept getting ready because I had a lot of classes to teach. I was conducting a lot of research with the classes that I taught. And so I needed to teach all of my classes every day. And, whenever the baby was born, I told them, I will miss one day of this class. I will just not show up, and you'll know what happened. But what I really couldn't do was miss the first class and then go in and do the rest of the classes. And so if it was false labor, that was going to be a major issue. So I kept getting ready, and I was just about to head out the door, and Leisha's like, I'm pretty sure this is the real thing. And it was. And so Leisha had Penny Rose unmedicated, but at the hospital. And so this time, she never told me, I'm pretty sure this is the real deal, but it kind of got to a point where I'm like, I'm pretty sure this is like it was with Penny Rose. And I think this is the real thing. So I went ahead and called the midwives. And I said, Leisha's in labor. And, I hate to call you at 1 o'clock in the morning for a false alarm, but I'm pretty sure this is it. And so they started getting ready to come. And so there was a space. I called the midwives twice. I'll talk to you about the second call here in a minute. But I called them twice. The two calls from start to start were 18 minutes apart. From the end of the first one to the start of the second one was 14 minutes. So I got off the phone. 14 minutes passed before my next call to the midwives. And Leisha continues to labor. And then all of a sudden, she's like, I feel like I need to push.
Tell them how long I had been in labor at this point.
You'd been in labor, what, an hour?
Like 45 minutes.
45 minutes? No, by the time you pushed? Because it was like an hour and 15 total, wasn't it?
I think it was like an hour total.
An hour total. Okay, so but the whole pushing wasn't very much time. So she'd been in labor roughly an hour, which isn't very long. And then she's like, I think I need to push. And, she's kind of in a zone, so it's not like we're having a big conversation, but it's like, oh boy, okay, I guess that, and she's like, I can feel the head. So it's like, oh, well, push then, and so, and we've watched a lot of births, and a lot of times the mother will kind of, ease the baby out. And so I was like, well, catch her. But, Alicia's kind of in a zone and she just sort of braced herself. So I'm like, apparently I'm catching. And so, she was kind of up in the tub and, the baby was in a position to drop basically straight down onto the bottom of the tub. So I was just sort of getting in position and baby is like a fish. And so there's no, I'm not gonna. If I would have had a net, I would have been, in retrospect, I should have had some sterile herping equipment with me. But since I didn't have a net, it was like, what can I do? And I couldn't grab her as she was coming out, but I was able to kind of turn my hands into a slide so that she could slide down, and she ended up kind of like a torpedo going perpendicular to the bottom of the tub instead of. Parallel to the bottom of the tub instead of perpendicular smack dab into it. And so she slid down and I scooped her up and put her on Leisha and I started rubbing her back and then, kind of Leisha snapped into a post-birth mindset and she started rubbing the baby's back and baby was out and breathing, and that was huge. It's like having a completely unassisted birth like this is amazing as long as everything goes right. But things can go really wrong, and so the first thing was wonderful. She was breathing. She got breathing. She did great, and then after that, my concern is just like. Hemorrhaging or having Leisha losing too much blood. And she's in a bath. And a bath tends to magnify how much blood it seems like there might be. And so I wasn't, it seemed like it was within the realm of this might not be a big deal, but also it's like, I don't know if she's still losing blood. Like, I don't know what this looks like. And so, a minute after she was born, I got back on the phone with the midwives and I'm like, okay, so there actually is a baby here now.
Baby's born.
Yeah, but I'm a little concerned about the bleeding, and they had me get Leisha out of the tub, so that we could see. And when she was out of the tub, it was pretty clear that, she wasn't losing very much blood. Everything just seemed great, and so we were there probably another 20 minutes before anybody else arrived. And
That long?
yeah, well, they were supposed to get there 40 minutes later, and I'd only been off the phone with them for 14 minutes.
Wow, it felt like 30 seconds.
No, it was not.
I was in pure bliss.
Yeah. Oh, we were having and you birthed the placenta and everything. So the after the birth, you also sort of birth out the placenta, and I was actually really excited. In the hospital, I never really got to get a very good look at the placenta, and in my classes that I teach, I actually talk quite a bit about the placenta because the placenta is really relevant in mammals and in the evolution of mammals. There's a major difference between the eutherian placenta and the metatherian placenta, which is.
Clint was teaching the midwives all about it when the midwives came.
Well, I wanted. Yeah, Alicia said I was teaching the midwives about placenta types because I wanted to see that placenta, and so they were showing it to me, and I was asking questions about it because as much as I know a lot about placentas, I haven't really actually studied very many placentas, and your
hands on placenta.
Yeah. I was gonna say if anybody wants to send me a placenta, please don't. I have one now though, which is interesting, kind of gross, arguably, but it's the placenta is fetal tissue, so it's arguably like part of the baby until you cut the umbilical cord, and then you have severed it from part of its body. If you guys want to know more about placentas, ask me questions about placentas for the rest of this. But if you don't want to know more about placentas, I get it. But they're stinking rad. So anyways, where do I go from here? She was born
in euphoric bliss for 20 minutes, snuggling and crying and laughing until the midwives came. They probably.
Can you guys hear Alicia? She's a little ways from the mic, but she said we just sat in euphoric bliss for 20 minutes waiting for the midwives to come. The midwives, they came and really took care of everything. Then we knew we were in very, very good hands. Honestly, had we not planned on a home birth, I have no idea what we would have done because we had 18 minutes between when I knew for sure this was the real deal and when baby was out.
And from my first contraction from baby was out was 1 hour.
Yeah, 1 hour. And so, this baby was going to be born in our house or in a car. Those were the options. And so, and then once you have a baby in your house, if you don't already have medical professionals coming, I don't know what the protocol is. Do you load everybody into the car and be like, all right, maybe we should go to the hospital now? Or do you call for an ambulance? I don't know. I don't know what the protocol is. But I sure was happy that we already had medical professionals on their way. It was miraculous and so special. Not something I would want to plan to be this way. Because again, if anything goes wrong, it'd be really dangerous. But since nothing went wrong, it was wonderful. It was incredible. And can I show her off? All right. Sit tight. All right. Oh, let's tilt this down a little. So this is baby Martha. She was born Tuesday morning. It's now Friday, so she's not very old. And she has been, she's the most perfect baby in the world. She really is. She's a good eater. She's, we figured out what she likes. And so she's sleeping really well for us. She's not fussy. Oh, she's just the most perfect little baby ever. And newborns make lousy pets, but they're awesome people.
Awfully good to snuggle.
Yeah. Oh, you're a good girl. She's really, really amazing. So anyway, I hope I've been able to do some amount of justice to this experience because probably one of the best experiences I've ever had in my entire life. I can't imagine too many things that could ever even come close. What an unreal thing to have happen. And and it was kind of really kind of typical of my relationship with Leisha generally. We've always been just kind of an amazing team. And I think we feel in a lot of ways like we can take on the world together. And this felt like kind of the ultimate expression of that. um, so an experience I never thought I would have in my life. I don't know if I'll ever have it again. I'm so thankful that everything went smoothly, and that there were no complications. But we sure are excited about this little girl. She's amazing. Well, she's so good.
When you said caught, I did not think you would be so literal.
Anyway, have her meet Gus Gus. There will come a time for that. We've had her meet Theo, quite a bit actually. I've been really careful about the way I do that. Going back to our cohabitation thing, as many of you probably know, I was severely attacked by our family dog when I was a small child, and part of it, probably most of it, was probably that there was some amount of jealousy. The dog had been part of the family since before I was, and I was taking a lot of attention from the dog. This was a much bigger, much more dangerous sort of a dog, but it's something. Theo could still be very, very dangerous to a baby, and he just seems to be like the sweetest dog in the world, but like a gaboon viper, he could surprise you one day. Everything seems fine, and then until it's really, really not. And so we're trying to be very, very careful with him, but also make sure that he is getting a lot of attention still, and having a lot of supervised exposure to her, so that she's just a normal part of his world, and not a threat to him in any way. So that he understands that she is part of the pack. And interestingly enough, during the birth, he was sort of the only other organism present. We have a really cute video right after Leisha was born, but you can hear Theo. He was just outside the door and he's barking, I think largely because he was, for a long time right before the birth too, he was staying with Leisha and really making sure that she was safe. And, I think he was trying to protect her and make sure she was okay. And we definitely want him to view her as part of our pack and not an outside threat. And so we'll be very, very careful with them for a long, long time. Dogs are dangerous animals, and you've got to be careful about these sorts of things very much. So far so good. Gus Gus, it'll be a while before Gus Gus has any sort of direct interaction. Though, when Penny Rose was 2, she was walking Gus Gus on a leash already. So, a couple of years, then Gus Gus will get a lot of good time with Martha, hopefully.
People are asking what kind of dog Theo
Theo
is.
he's 75% Yorkshire Terrier and 25% probably miniature poodle. So his mom is a Yorkie Doodle. She's 50-50, and his dad is Yorkie. Interestingly enough, his dad weighs 4 pounds, his mom weighs 8 pounds, and Theo weighs like 16 pounds. The breeder can't believe how huge he is, and amusingly enough, when we were telling the breeder about this, they were like, "Send a picture," and so we took a forced perspective picture of him with Penny, and said it was so funny because it made him just look colossal. But he's not a huge dog, but for what he is, he's a colossus. And he's great. He's hypoallergenic, which is a big deal because I think I'm a little bit allergic to dog hair, and I also don't want them shedding all over the house. Yeah, so I didn't have any intention of getting a dog. I would study out getting a dog periodically, and break it down into our 5 categories. And I'm like, this is a terrible idea. And But Alicia would talk about getting a dog from time to time, and somebody offered us Theo as a puppy, and he was small and hypoallergenic. Yorkie miniature poodle mixes like that are actually very, very desirable and expensive dogs, and they're offering it to us for free. They also said, if we decided it wasn't the right fit for us, that we could bring him back. In fact, that breeder has been like, I would actually really like to have him because he's awesome, but we now love him, unfortunately. And and so it's like, well, if we were ever gonna see if a dog is the right fit for us, this is the opportunity. And a dog, in a lot of ways, especially that first year of puppy, nightmare. I really felt like, okay, well, I'm pretty much ready for newborn now because this really isn't that different. But he is an awesome dog. As dogs go, I can't imagine, especially for us at this time in our lives, I can't imagine how a dog could be a better fit for us. And his personality is just unbelievable. He is so friendly and not afraid. That's one of the things with smaller breed dogs. Some of them can be just really nervous, and that can lead to bites and defense. Because they're defensive. When you're a tiny little wolf, the world is a scary place. And but I guess it's sort of typical of Yorkies that they don't seem to understand that they're little, and he does not. He is not afraid of anything. Like he'll walk up to big dogs that are growling at him, and he's just like, "Hey!" He wouldn't make it in the wild. That's the take home. All right.
Awesome story, Clint.
Thank you.
I can definitely see you in the moment, holding the baby and saying, "Hey, hang on, can somebody take this baby? I gotta talk about placentas with the midwives for a second."
The midwives got me to the bed and got me all settled. And then they were getting the placenta all wrapped up, and they said, "Did you guys want to get a good look at it before we put it away?" And Clint said, "I do."
Yeah.
And he ran in there and started teaching the midwives all about the placenta.
Well, the thing that there was so much that stood out to me about that placenta that was unusual. So, again, I won't go too deep into placentas unless you guys want me to, but one of the things is the Eutherian placenta has a lot more surface area than the Metatherian placenta. The Metatherians being the marsupials. And, that's why marsupials need a NICU. They have a pouch because they're born extremely premature because their placenta doesn't have very much surface area. This placenta didn't seem to have a ton of surface area for a Eutherian placenta. And I'm curious now to know if things like deer, say an animal that's comparable in size, but born at much greater size than humans, I'm curious if their placenta has a lot more of the fingering projections than does the human. Human placenta might be able to get away with not having a ton of surface area because we too are born very premature because we've got giant heads and little pelvises, multiple pelvises. We got little pelvises and big heads, and so to fit that out of there, you have to be born very premature. And so we might be able to get away with a lower surface area placenta than other placental mammals. That's my hypothesis. If you guys know more about placentas, I would love to know. Jason.
Nice. All right. Should we do some super chat?
Let's do some.
Oh my God, the baby.
I've been worried about that the whole time. She's the perfect baby, though. So she'll probably sleep through it all.
Okay. Victoria Usher sent a super chat saying, "Congratulations on your new human. Hope you are all doing well."
Thank you so much, Victoria. We are doing great. We're doing really great.
Robin George sent a super chat saying, "Hi, Clint. Can you explain how snakes move?"
Yeah. Snakes have a few different ways of moving. So the question is, can I explain how snakes move? They're probably three main modes of locomotion that you'll see with snakes most often. One of them is just sort of the S-type slithering, and there's probably a term for this, but I don't remember these terms off the top of my head, but I can tell you how they work. And effectively, what it is doing is it is using the backside of each of those coils, each of those S's, to push itself forward. And so, it's just constantly pushing with whatever's the back part of the S curve. all the time. There's also a form of locomotion you see more often. Hognose snakes do it a lot, but also your heavy-bodied snakes. And that is where they will undulate their ribs. And they can use this to move basically in a straight line. And it's really awesome. It's almost like watching them move like this. The rhinoceros vipers and gaboon vipers are really notorious for moving this way. And it looks like a millipede. There's just sort of this rhythmic wave down their body of them pushing with their ribs. And then the third one is called sidewinding. And sidewinding is used by sidewinders. And really, just about any snake that's at least light enough to get itself off the ground will do this if you put it on a hot surface. They're not all as good at it as sidewinders are, but all they're really trying to do is they're trying to keep their surface area of their body off of the hot substrate so they don't burn themselves and so they don't cook themselves. And so they're keeping as few parts of their body on the ground at any one time as possible. And usually, I think with sidewinders, it's two parts, and they're essentially just throwing coils into the air so that they're not much of them is touching the hot ground at any one time. And that's how snakes tend to move. Are you back muted, Mr. Jason?
There we go. Yes.
You promised you were done with the muting.
Elena Waldman says, thank you and congrats on your newest mammalian.
Thank you very much. Up to 4 mammals now, counting the wolf.
Philip O says, hello from Yukon, Canada, where there is twice as many moose as people.
That is so awesome. I was just seeing a thing the other day, and I think part of this is not true. But I'm interested how often this happens. They were reporting that it was like just an image I saw, and it said that orcas are the only natural predator of moose. Now I know that they're not, because wolves will hunt moose. Probably bears, if they can get the element of surprise, might take down a moose. But I really hadn't thought about orcas hunting moose, because I don't know how often moose get into saltwater. I know they get into freshwater quite a bit. And so if you can verify that for me, you're probably a moose specialist. I would love that.
Let's see. Ruby Sierra sent 2 super chats. Thank you, Ruby. Super chat! There you go. Your vids have kept me and my boyfriend sane throughout lockdown. But you've got us hooked, and we've been adding to our reptile family. You'll be an amazing dad. Congratulations. We love you.
Well, thank you.
An amazing story. Well done to you both.
Thank you very much. And I'm so glad we were able to help a little bit so far. We intend, I think, to keep going with these for a while. Things are starting to open up, but it seems like there's been a lot of people asking us to keep going. So, kind of let us know for how long you'd like us to do this. And yeah, there is the risk, though, that you might find more and more reptiles that you want. It's always risks.
All right. Natalie's Reptile sent a super chat saying, amazing story. Glad Lisa and the baby are well.
Oh, thank you so much. What an experience. Oh, here, I'm pointing out a thing. People were talking about my hands not turning over. They said, what do you mean your hands don't turn over? So my palms, they will not turn up. That's as far as I can turn my palm up. I can over rotate it the other way. It's kind of freaky. Anyway, it affects the way that I handle babies and big lizards, but you notice I basically have to pin the baby to my body. I can't just scoop under it like a normal human. It also affects very much the way that I ask for change, because if I hold a hand out like this, it all slopes down, so I have to hold both hands out like a beggar. Can I please have my nickels? So far, so good with our children. We haven't checked Martha yet, but the children can rotate their hands properly, which means they can touch their shoulders. I can't. Means they can't put sunscreen on their whole back as I can. But it does mean that they could potentially play the guitar or violin. Yeah, I am. I am like a velociraptor. I actually have a friend, Dr. Bybee,
Somebody
Paul
said they
Biden.
have the same condition.
Somebody commented that the other day. Are you the same person?
I've never seen anyone else.
Yep.
Ask them what it is.
You're the
What
only
is
one.
it
Do you know
called?
what it's called? Because I went to a doctor. I was in ROTC, and I couldn't salute properly because you're supposed to have a 90-degree angle there and tip your hand down like this at the same time. Well, I cannot do that. And so my salute was never proper, and I kept getting in trouble for it. And so when I had my physical for ROTC, I asked, the doctor, I'm like, my hands don't turn over and I can't do this. Can you explain why that is? And she said, I'm just a little different. So that's the medical opinion I got. If you have a better diagnosis, what I did learn to do is fan my fingers like this, and then they noticed less. It's a start. I can't remember where I was going with this, but yes. Paul Bybee at UVU, he was actually consulted when they were making Jurassic Park about whether or not a velociraptor could do this. And he informed them that it couldn't do that type of rotation, and so they installed this sort of door handle on all the doors so that velociraptors could open it. So this is the opposite of what they should have done at Jurassic Park, which was ask that same question: can a velociraptor do this? And then install door handles it can't open. That's how you do it. Michael Crichton, he's trying to get people killed, right? And it almost got, I don't know if their door opening ability really got to anybody. Mr. Arnold, perhaps, because it looks like he was inside of that little compound where you can turn on and off the fences. And so they might have gotten him entirely because they could open doors.
Who's
They
Mr.
all,
Arnold?
Samuel L. Jackson, hold on to your butts. They almost got Ellie, because they could get in there. They almost got Tim, Lex, Dr. Grant, Ellie again, right? In the end, it actually wound up getting their velociraptors killed by a T-Rex who got in there. Not quite sure how, but it was real sneaky about it. For an animal that shakes the ground whenever it walks, all of a sudden it's just there. Like, everybody looked over and like, I didn't even know there was a T-Rex in here.
Somebody said, take my wrist. It's too flexible for my liking.
Yeah. Good. Yeah, I need some flexible human wrists. Even just one. I would go left. Then I could play guitar. I cannot.
Okay, so in the live chat, Ray Lone Wolf did some Googling and said apparently in some areas, like the Great Bear Rainforest, animals, including moose, will swim between islands, and that moose aren't typically on the menu for orcas, but it does happen.
Yep, I find that believable. Did you know there is no record of any human ever being killed by a wild orca? However, if a human ever was killed by a wild orca, I have a feeling they would just be reported as having disappeared.
That is very true.
Like the reason that there are, shark attacks like from great whites, and people survive sometimes, or at least, there's something to bury. It's because great white sharks don't like to eat people, right? So they bite you just to see what you are, and they're like, oh, I don't like this at all. And they spit you out. It's just being taste tested by a great white shark is devastating. But orcas, if they actually were eating people, yep, Tim disappeared. Nobody's seen Tim for a while.
Why is it that great white sharks don't find us tasty? I'm kind of offended by that.
Yeah, as you should be.
Well, Jason, they might like him.
Yeah, if a lot of it is, sharks have a fairly specific menu. They're eating fish and they're eating pinnipeds mostly, which are seals and sea lions, and if they bite into something that's not that, it might not be food. So they're like, oh man. And usually it's mistaken identity, at least with great whites. Though I've heard some mixed reports on this, but they're trying to figure out what you are, right? And they go up and they mouth you. They go, ow, and they go, oh gosh, pah, what is this? And they spit you out, and you're like, oh, that was still real horrible. Like, I really wish that hadn't happened at all. Like,
People are saying we're not fat enough and we're too bony.
yeah, worst meal ever. Imagine me. I should just have a sign for the great whites, like, don't eat this. You will be so disappointed. It's
not
unbelievable.
as tasty as you might think.
Yeah, no, you will hate this. You'll hate this.
So let's jump over to some Patreon questions.
Patreon.
I didn't want to spoil it, but there were a lot of Patreon patrons who wished you congratulations, like Charlotte Young, Justin M. Bruce, David Band, Maxwell Lyman, Uriel Gray, Merlin, and Eileen Sibley. They all wished you congratulations. And I want to point out two of my favorite congratulations. Justin M. Bruce said, congratulations on hatching a fresh pinky. And Merlin says, congratulations, what a beautiful new pet human.
Those are wonderful. Thank you guys so much. Thank you all for all the kind things that you've had to say. We are so excited about her, and it means so much that we've had so much support from you guys as well.
Clint, I have a question. It's been a little while since your most recent human until now, and we had just filmed that video not too long ago on human pet. And would you change the score now that you've got a refresher?
Oh no, the score was spot on. But it varies. Like I said, it varies a lot between individuals, and this individual so far is just amazing. But also, still a pretty hard pet.
That's worth it.
Yeah. Worth it in many ways. But an Ackie is way easier. I've never ever been woken up in the middle of the night by an Ackie. Not even once.
Go to the grocery store with an Ackie.
Yeah. Ackie. Yeah. I mean, if I need to take a nap or go to the store, that's fine, right? I can even go on vacation. Ackie will be just fine. Babies hate that though, and then you get in all kinds of trouble. It's not acceptable.
All right. Let's do a Patreon question. David Band says, any chance of more falconry videos? I would think you could do one on the Harris hawk, one of the coolest due to their social pack nature.
We probably will down the road cover more birds of prey because they're awesome. I think short term we've also got to cover some birds that aren't birds of prey that are maybe a little bit more reasonable of pets. But it's like if we're going to crack into covering dinosaurs, like let's do the dinosaurs some serious justice here and cover some of the raddest extant dinosaurs there are. And so we have done so.
All right. Eileen Sibley says, how do you manage to balance animal husbandry with your other work and family? Looks so busy.
Oh, it's been insane. Honestly, I haven't meant to get myself as busy as I have been for a while, and the balance has been hard. My family's been very, very understanding of my absence in a lot of situations. I try, I don't get as much time as I would like with my family, especially. But I try to make the time that I do have valuable and quality. I am so excited because I'm like a week away from having things ease up for me in a way that they haven't in years and years and years. I've had at least 2 full-time jobs all the time for a long time. And I'm so excited, guys. I am so excited. I mean, now all I got to worry about is, earning enough money to feed us. That's all. That seems so delightful. Like, things will work out that way. But I'm so excited to get some time with my family, to get to do activities. I love mountain biking. My mountain bike has been broken for 6 years, 7 years. Somebody stole my front wheel off of it, and I bought a full replacement wheel for it, and the tire immediately went flat before I even got to ride it. And I've been like, well, now what? I haven't had time to deal with it. And I love mountain biking. And, in a couple weeks, I intend to get my mountain bike fixed and go on bike rides with my kids and herping, so much herping. I am planning to have the greatest summer ever. And I'm so excited. So excited. Thanks for being here with me.
Just as reach back to what we were talking about earlier, the name Sweel Catch, that individual who had the same condition as you, they Googled it or looked it up and found that it's called radio ulnar cynostosis.
Okay.
And I forgot Latin.
So radial ulnar, which is, those are the two bones. Stenosis?
SYNOSTOSIS.
Sinusitis, something like that.
Something like that.
Okay, well I'll have to Google that more. Stenostosis. Okay, what causes it? Are you looking it up?
No.
Oh, I now I want to know what causes it. It's neither of my parents have it, so it's definitely not a single gene dominant sort of a trait. None of my kids have it.
Congenital.
So but it does sound like it's genetic. So maybe it's recessive or multiple. Yeah, following an injury. So I have a sister-in-law who broke her arm, and now she's got similar. So basically, all that's happening is the bones in my forearm are just a little bit twisted, and so I have normal range of motion. It's just it starts in a different place and ends in a different place than normal, and it actually inhibits more activities than you would think. You'd be amazed how often you need to be able to turn your palm face up. But I actually didn't know I was weird until I was a junior in high school and I took anatomy. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, I just thought people that could touch their shoulders were more flexible than I was. People who couldn't put sunscreen on their whole back were just lazy.
Just FYI, your condition might be different than that one reference, because it looks like that one is where there is a abnormal connection between the two bones.
Oh,
I'm not sure if you have that connection.
Yeah, I don't see that. So, we will keep researching. Keep researching.
Our best minds are on it.
Yes. Yeah. Now I got a number of allies in my search for understanding.
All right. Maxwell Lyman.
Hang on just a moment. Leisha would like her baby back for some reason.
I'm sorry, I missed that.
Leisha'd like the baby back for some reason. She's so cute. Those endotherms are toasty, so I don't mind handing her up. All right. Was this a super chat?
This was a Patreon.
Oh, okay. Then I will keep the button at bay.
Maxwell Lyman says, I think my female beardie might lay eggs. She's been glass surfing a lot and trying to dig in her enclosure.
Yep.
What do you recommend is best substrate for a big box for her?
I would say some sand that is a little bit damp. That's what I've had the best success with, though I've also had them lay in eco earth. Maybe one of each would be good. Here's my biggest recommendation, though, with beardies. Having had quite a few baby beardies, it is tough having tons and tons of baby beardies. And one of the things I've discovered, so it is not unusual to have them nip tails and toes from each other. The reason that this happens is because you basically have to cohab them. I mean, there aren't very many people that can set up, say, 40 individual beardie tanks just like that, And so if you'll have a couple of clutches on top of each other, you're gonna have a lot of them in there together potentially. And And what I found is some clutches you don't have any problems from the nipping, and some clutches you do, and it's usually just that there's like 1 or 2 jerks in there that are nipping everybody. And so once you have your eggs and you incubate them, or while they're incubating, already maybe figure out if there's some place you can go with them. I mean, you might want to hold on to a few of them for yourself, for people, maybe try to sell them yourself. But if you've got a local pet store or something like that that's interested in taking a chunk of them, that's going to be good. That's going to be good. Now, I've been doing this with Animal Arc, where I've been taking a decent percentage of all the dragons that I produce there, just because my life's been crazy. I don't have time to deal with all these beardies all the time. And I haven't, as you know, my life's been crazy. I haven't been pairing animals this year, for breeding. I still have a few people have been asking me about it. Here, I probably will try some late season pairings once my life eases up. But I haven't been breeding anything. I did get a clutch of beardies not long ago. It was unexpected and came out of nowhere. I haven't had my beardies paired. They're just retained sperm from last year. And so anyway, just make sure you know what you're going to do with all those babies, because it's a lot of babies.
Good advice.
Because it won't be one clutch. It'll be like 4. Just FYI, about a month apart. You're going to have another clutch, another clutch, another clutch. I'm back.
Perfect. Let's see. Another Patreon question. There's a few from Benjamin Bramble, and I like them, so we're going to read them. Star Wars or Lord of the Rings?
Oh, for me?
Yeah.
So I enjoy both Star Wars and Lord of the Rings. This is my thing with fantasy and sci-fi and just entertainment in general. Like, I'm not a very mutually exclusive person. I sort of enjoy it all. I like Lord of the Rings a lot. I have actually been wanting to watch it with my kids. I think Owen especially, and Penny too, probably. I think they both like it. And I haven't watched it with them. I've been trying to get through all the Star Wars movies. So I tried watching all of them. 1, 2, and 3. I don't remember them being very good. I loved Star Wars so much at the time they came out. And so I tried to really like them when they first came out, but I never bought them. And I'm like, that's probably a sign I didn't really like them that well. And then I recently rewatched them. They're much worse than I remember them being. So bad. Just unbelievably bad. It's outrageous. And especially when you watch episode 4. When you watch A New Hope and you hear the way that Obi-Wan talks about Anakin. Now, I heard a pretty good Star Wars theory recently that Obi-Wan was lying in the same way that he lied about exactly what happened with Anakin and Vader. So, he might have been lying about what the situation. I mean, obviously, if 1, 2, and 3 are the truth, then yes, he was lying about what it was like. But, there was such a great opportunity. They had an incredible untold backstory, and they told it really dumb. 4, 5, and 6, incredible. Not only are they fun and they're in an amazing world and stuff, but just the dialogue and stuff, especially with Han and Leia, unbelievable. So good. Not many. The Empire Strikes Back, hard to say there's been a better movie ever. Now, going in chronological order, I need to step back a little bit, because if we're going to talk about Solo and also Rogue One. Solo is a good movie if the protagonist wasn't supposed to be Han Solo. He just didn't have that for me, but it's a good movie. Rogue One, spectacular. And then this new trilogy, the first one I thought was really good. They were off to a good start. The second one was a horrible derailment and undid all the awesome of the first one. The third one basically saved it. So anyway, Star Wars, real big fan. Lord of the Rings, I like it a lot, and I need to watch it again so I can see if I enjoy it.
All right. So Star Wars or Lord of the Rings? You got to pick one.
Oh, Star Wars, hands down. Now you can ask me harder questions like Star Wars or Jurassic Park. Then I'm like,
okay. Are silkworms a good feeder? Snake Discovery says they're great, but I've never seen them on best feeder lists outside of them.
Yeah, they're great. They're expensive and hard to find because I think they're a moth larva, and moths are just they're not as easy to keep in a box as are beetles. And so beetle larvae tend to be the winner.
That makes sense. He also asks, Brandon Bramble over at Patreon also asks, how can we support you outside of Super Chats, watching your videos, and Patreon?
Oh, well, so those are great ways, especially to support our channel as a whole. You know, our other undertaking at the moment is Clint's Reptile Room, and we've still got a GoFundMe going for that. It's because of that GoFundMe that we were able to get started. It's really, I mean, we've put in a huge amount of our own money as well, you know, and we haven't really been able to be open yet. This Saturday, I'm actually doing my first outdoor presentation with the Reptile Room. So we're doing kind of a soft reopening. I'll be wearing a mask. We'll be social distancing. It'll be outdoors, but I'm going to be doing a presentation. So the Reptile Room will finally start to generate some revenue to support itself. So that would be another place that's amazing. Other than that, I don't know, but we probably should come up with ways, but those are huge. Also just sharing our videos with your friends and family. That it all helps. It all helps. You know, I'm honestly, like, for the last year, this last year, I ended up with 2 part-time jobs, instead of taking a full-time job, because I wanted to have the time to devote more to the channel. I mean, I really think that we're doing something important here, and I'm kind of making career moves to make the channel a bigger and bigger priority, you know, and that also makes it so that the channel needs to do a little bit better, so that we can get by. And, you know, right now I certainly have nothing to complain about. I have nothing to complain about. We're so thankful for the generosity that you guys have shown to us. You've been just amazing, you know, and you guys have, you know, some of you have been able to support us financially, which is huge, and some of you have also just been able to support us with encouragement, you know, and that from the beginning. I mean, that's why we're still doing this. I wouldn't have dreamed in a million years we'd be doing this. This is kind of in line with what I would dream of being able to do, but I would have had no idea how to make this happen. And it's all because of you guys, and I'm so thankful. So, thanks for even offering. That's so kind. You guys are so kind. You've just blown me away with your generosity. I never would have dreamed.
All right. So speaking of super chats, we got a new a batch of super chats.
A batch?
A batch of super chats. Good. All right. Natalie's Reptile, who had sent over a super chat earlier, she sent over another one.
Thank you.
Can you do a video on salamanders?
Yes. Yeah, and we have one already on spotted salamanders. So if you haven't seen that, check that one out. I definitely would like to do more salamanders in the future. Amphibians are so rad. And salamanders are, you know, growing up in Colorado, the only salamanders I ever ran into in the wild were tiger salamanders, which are cool, but they're like not even close to my favorite salamanders. And then I got to spend 3 weeks in the field in Wisconsin a few years ago, and I was catching the little plethodonid salamanders, which they're so cool. I cannot wait to do a video on them. You know, these are your lungless salamanders. I mean, there will be a good chunk of that video that is just me talking about how rad it is and why they can get away with being lungless before we'll ever talk about if they're decent pets or not. They're so cool. Plus, they shoot their tongue out like a chameleon. They're so cool. Yes, count on more salamanders. I was catching salamanders all the time and having like one of the best times in my life. I need to spend more time. I lived in Florida briefly, but I was like in Orlando, basically. I worked at Disney World. And while I was there were lots of tree frogs and toads and things to catch. I want to go to North Carolina and Florida soon. That's sort of a dream I have. I think there was a herpetological society that wanted to have us down in Florida, right?
I think it was actually a pet shop.
A pet shop. Okay, well, there's some place down in Florida that invited us out. So once it becomes a little bit safer to travel, I want to go to Florida and catch salamanders. And if you guys would like to see us herping Florida and trying not to get eaten by anything, that'd be amazing. I would enjoy doing that. So lots of herping needs to happen in the future. If you guys can give me some direction too, like lots of people do herping videos. And we finally have the equipment because of Patreon. We finally have the equipment to make a herping video, but I want to make a really good one, right? Something you guys would really enjoy. So I want to, you guys know I have a little bit of an unusual skill set. And there might be things that I could do that, other people couldn't. I want to know, what would make a herping video really valuable for you guys? What do you want to see? And I'll try to make it happen because I love herping and I intend to do a ton of it this summer. And if I could go around the world like Dave Kaufman and go herping, that would be just amazing. But I'd have to be making it make sense for you guys. Something you'd really want to see. So that'd be awesome. Anyway, I'm back. Sorry.
All right. Another super chat from AR Humboy 201 says, I'm a mechanical engineering student and 3D printing specialist. What might you want 3D printed?
Wow. Oh, I don't. I mean, the thing that comes to my mind first off, because I have levels of nerdy you guys don't even know about. Okay, I should tell you, if I hadn't majored in biology, mechanical engineering is something I'm really interested in, and I would have probably had a lot of fun with. Something I did when I was in high school. So when I was in high school, Nerf guns were really hard to find. And they pretty much were only available at Toys R Us, which tragically is no longer with us. And there weren't a lot of really good ones. And with some of my friends, we built a high-powered Nerf rifle. At 30 psi, it would shoot a Nerf dart through a full soda can, which, that seems like something you should need to do. And then when I was in physics in college, I upgraded that Nerf gun and I could get it to like 150 psi. It would just blow the darts apart. I don't even know what it would have done. Anyway, nowadays Nerf's super popular and there are all these rad 3D printed Nerf guns. So that's probably something I would do if I knew how to 3D print. Other things, I'd be printing off all kinds of vertebrate skulls I'd probably have them in my set. I think somebody's sending us a Carnotaurus skull. Is that you, Newt, that's sending the Carnotaurus skull? Which I'm so excited about that. A Tuatara skull would be something I would really like to have because it shows off the diapsid condition really, really well. And it'd be nice to have a comparable lizard skull, like maybe a bearded dragon, so that I could show the lack of the jugal arch really clearly. Dinosaur skulls, of course. Crocodilians. Mammals. I'd need to have some sort of a good synapsid skull. Maybe a skull of like a platypus or an echidna. I don't know. This is probably what I would do all day if I had the technical skills and the equipment to do good 3D printing.
Let's see. Jennifer Marone sent a healthy super chat. She says, congratulations. Use this to buy the baby something.
We do what? Can you repeat that?
Sorry. Jennifer Marone sent a stinking rad super chat saying, congratulations. Use this to buy the baby something.
You've missed to buy the baby something?
Yeah, the super chat money.
Oh, use this. Sorry, it took me so long to understand. Thank you. We shall. Well, I'll run by Alicia what she needs. We just got all of her binkies taken care of, and she's so cute. We love her so much. Thank you. That is so kind of you.
And Laura Smith also sent a stinking rad super chat saying, thank you for helping me rediscover my love for reptiles. This recently helped me take the plunge and get my first reptile. I got a BCI, probable super hypo male boa. I can tweet him at you if you want.
Well, that sounds awesome. What a great choice. I bet he's got really skinny saddles if he's a super hypo, and probably pretty bright and beautiful. Oh, what a good choice. What a good choice.
All right, let's do some lightning round.
Let's do it. Okay, lightning round. Ready.
Let's see. The olive. The olive Zal says Tyrannosaurus Rex hands. 3D print the Tyrannosaurus Rex hands.
Oh, that would be pretty rad. That would be pretty rad. And the foot of a velociraptor.
Let's see. Helgi Homie says, "Hey Clint, I'm kind of new to this channel, but do you have a tour for your reptile?"
A tour?
Like a reptile room tour kind of thing.
Oh, so we a while back did a 3-part series about the species that I keep. There weren't any great up close shots during that series. Michelle actually was very, very pregnant at the time and just wasn't feeling up to doing all that B-roll that day, and so we haven't done that. We will probably do an updated-ish sort of a tour in the future once the reptile room is ready. You know, we've kind of had to pause it, and hopefully here pretty soon things will open up and we'll get to get back underway with that.
All right. Heather Sumner says, "My 2 tigers and 11 snakes say hello. We love you."
Oh, thank you very kindly.
Kalopsia says, "Coolest animal eyes."
Oh boy, chameleons have got to be up there. I like the story involving owl eyes. The mollusk eye, like you see in octopus. Gecko eyes are pretty stinking rad. There, let's go there.
Okay. Fang Trudon says, "What is your favorite dinosaur?"
Okay, right now, Carnotaurus. Sometimes Tyrannosaurus Rex. At other times, Deinonychus.
Let's see. Exotics in Aquaria says, "Hi Clint, what is your favorite corn snake morph and why?" Mine's OTT and Miami Faye.
So Okati is a great one because that's a naturally occurring, just sort of a locality morph, and it's beautiful. I like snow a lot. That's a pretty snake. There are lots of pretty corn snake morphs.
Keith Payne says, "Did you name the snapping turtle?"
Did I name the snapping turtle? I haven't. In fact, even Martha's middle name is still up in the air. I'm bad at naming things. It's so you have to commit so hard. So I think I'm personally leaning towards Chunk still, but I know there are other people in my family who have strong opinions that it should not be Chunk. So we're still deciding.
I, for one, vote for Chubba myself.
Yeah. Well, Bubba's up there, and yeah, Chubba's Jason's opinion is the hybrid.
The hybrid, yes.
I think anytime you're torn between 2 names, you should just hybridize them.
We can turn badly very quickly.
Yeah.
All right. Natalie's Reptile says, "Favorite flavor of ice cream?"
There are lots of great flavors. I would say generally I like the cookies and cream Oreo only because it's always good. No matter what brand it is, where you have it, it's always good. It's never bad, but it's not my very favorite. My very favorite is something made by Kroger. So it's a store brand for like King Supers or Kroger, Smith's. Their stores are called different things in different places. It is called Triple Brownie, and it is unbelievably good. It has real chocolate like woven through it. Amazing.
Sounds delicious. AR Homeboy 201 sent another super chat. I think another super chat says, "If I didn't do engineering, I would have done wildlife biology. I spent my years of high school working in a biological discovery center in our high school in Bayon.
You still there? Oh,
You there?
yes, I am.
Okay. Let's see. Kalapsia agrees with me for Chugga, and they had Chugga the Hut.
I couldn't hear the end of your last question, though.
It wasn't a question. It was just, hey, I would have done wildlife biology. I worked at a biological discovery center in my high school, and it was fun.
You sound like your brain and my brain might be almost the same brain. It wouldn't have taken much to go that route instead. Differential equation sounds hard, but I like math, so I don't know. Maybe I would have been fine.
Jim Phones asks, "Hi Clint, what is your favorite food?"
Oh boy, I do like food. I like pizza a lot because it is excellent. Chocolate cake is often very, very good. Oh goodness. Oh goodness. Probably just depends on the day. I love lots of foods. Foods are sort of like, Peruvian dishes. I like ají de gallina, and I like lomo saltado. Those are both excellent. And torta de tres leches. Very, very good.
Okay, Dumerril's boa versus BCI. Which is your favorite and why?
I like the way that Dumerril's boas look better, and I like the temperament just a little bit better of common boas, the BCI boas. But Dumerril's boas also have a very good temperament. It's just BCIs seem to be a little bit better, and I like the size better on a BCI because I like the bigness of those snakes, and Dumerril's are a little bit smaller.
D10 says, "What do you think is the best plant besides pothos for high humidity bioactive terrarium?" Love your channel.
So philodendrons, but they're pretty comparable to pothos as far as like let's see. There's I've been experimenting with a lot of, honestly, I like mosses. I like mosses a ton. They're just hard, but high humidity and good light. And yeah, mosses are amazing. Ground cover plants, I just love them. There's a type of moss called a fern moss. Love that. That's unbelievably cool. There's a creeping ficus, real small leaves, incredible, amazing. In fact, I think we have a video coming out about some of these, so sit tight.
Yes, we do. Some people missed the name of the baby.
Her name is Martha, middle name to be determined. We have 10 days from the time of birth. And so we'll get back to you on that one.
You're going to shorten it to TBA, right?
To what?
To be announced?
To be announced. Well, and actually, we're sort of torn between two. We're torn between Elizabeth and Jean. And apparently, Jason would prefer for us to call her Jean Elizabeth, or what are other options? Eileen. Those are the options that Jason would go for. He would just mix the two names into one.
Mix the two, that's right.
Yes. Oh, can I answer this pineapple on pizza thing?
Pineapple on pizza?
Yes, I think so. So my favorite single topping is pepperoni, but I like pepperoni and pineapple. And I know a lot of people find that very inappropriate, but I like sweet and salty together. Take 5 is an excellent candy bar. In the back.
I got to disagree with you. Pineapple does not belong on pizza.
Oh, I know that about you because you don't think that fruit belongs with anything else.
I don't think, yes, the fruit should be consumed by itself. Namely, fruit should not be warm. It should be cold.
No, I do agree with you there. The ideal situation with your pineapple is that you heat your pizza and then you put your cold pineapples on top.
So are you saying that we should put cold pineapple on top of a hot pizza?
That is what I'm saying. That's the perfect scenario.
And I don't know if I'd appreciate that. But Natalie's Reptiles agrees with me 100%. She is on Team Jason.
I understand that pineapple on pizza is very controversial. I happen to enjoy it. But it's not something I think you should force on others.
Warm fruit. No, thank you.
Yeah. It's not like Ackies that everybody should be exposed to. You know? Some people could not like them. It's okay with pineapple on pizza.
Michelle told a lie on the chat and said that I don't like pie. I actually love pie, just not pie that has one fruit in it, because that's not good.
That very much limits your pie selection, though.
It does. Chocolate pies, and my wife makes an amazing pumpkin pie.
Pumpkin pie is still warm fruit, Jason.
It is a fruit, but I kind of throw it in the vegetable category. Let's be honest, it's not sweet.
Okay, so no sweet fruit mixed with basically anything. Now, I will tell you, when it comes to chocolate-covered strawberries, they are okay, but they are not as good as chocolate or strawberries. What are your thoughts on this, Mr. Jason?
I agree. That is just wrong.
Yeah. Okay.
I was going to end, but we had a super chat sweep in. Here we go. Victoria Usher says, my 8-year-old will be so happy that you like pepperoni and pineapple. Everyone thinks it's so bizarre. So do I.
It's wonderful. And the thing is, the most accepted of all pineapple pizzas is Hawaiian, that has Canadian bacon, somehow Hawaiian, and pineapple on it. Well, Canadian bacon is just like real bad pepperoni. So why not upgrade to good pepperoni and leave the pineapple? Delightful.
Yeah. Let's see. Another quick one. Toilet paper, over or under?
Oh, over.
Yeah.
Under is inappropriate. Like, I know there are people that feel the opposite. They're wrong. They're just wrong, right? Sometimes it's like, there's good arguments to be made on either side. There's only one. The under argument is it's much harder for like a pet or a kid to unravel it. And if you can't train your children or your pets to stop doing that, then I guess you have to, but you have to do something wrong. You have to do something wrong in order to prevent this awful disaster. It's worth training them.
Yes. All right. So we should probably wrap this up. We've gone a little long.
Yeah. Well, hey, thank you guys. Oh, no to mullets. Can I address mullets? My mountain bike is actually called a mullet. Yeah, mullets are inappropriate. Unless you're talking about the wardrobe mullet, which is where you're all dressed up on top and wearing pajama pants on the bottom, then they're okay by me. Or if you keep tigers. Then you can have a mullet.
That is a prerequisite.
Yeah.
Tigers, actually.
Yeah. People actually, I think if you have a mullet, people offer you tigers, which is probably the reason that people have mullets. Okay. Thank you guys. This has been fun. You guys are fun. I've been having such a good time with these. I never would have dreamed this would be so much fun, but you guys are just a blast. You're the best community on YouTube, certainly online, and maybe just anywhere. I've never met so many just kind and good and encouraging, uplifting people that also share a hobby that, I never shared with anybody until I was in graduate school. Like, I'd never met anybody else who likes reptiles, and there are just tons of you guys here sharing this with me. Thank you. You guys are incredible, and I'm excited for next week. Enjoy tomorrow's video. It's unbelievably good. It's unbelievably good. All right. I see. Is that a super chat?
Yes, Yeah, they smack it. If you're smart and you want the live stream to go longer, you just flip to the super chat at the very end.
Why not all 4 names? I'm assuming this is from Martha. So do 2 middle names.
There you go.
Maybe we could just pack the bench with names. But or we can save some of them. You know, both Martha Elizabeth and Jean, they're both family names. And so, you know, if we have more children down the road at some point, they might come in handy. But we will ponder this. And thank you for being a teacher. Teachers need more love, and I think maybe the world is starting to see that. So, as always, like and subscribe, and we hope to see you real soon.